The galactic casino station Fortune's Edge gleamed like a jewel against the void, its crystalline spires catching the light of 3 different suns. Within its halls, beings from across the galaxy wagered fortunes on games of chance, skill, and pure audacity. Tonight, however, the usual din of gambling had fallen to a hushed whisper. Zarthek the Destroyer, self-proclaimed Dragon King of the Void Realm, stood before the high-stakes table. His scales shimmered with an iridescent purple that spoke of ancient power, and his forearms bore the ceremonial marks of 1,000 conquered worlds. In one massive claw, he held a quantum credit chip worth more than most planetary economies. "I wish to play," his voice rumbled through the universal translator, each word carrying the weight of absolute authority. The Altarian dealer, her 6 eyes blinking nervously, gestured to the betting minimum display. "My lord, the minimum stake for this table is—" "I do not ask about minimums, insect." Zarthek's inner flame flickered behind his throat. "I place this." He set down the chip with a resonance that made the entire station vibrate. 1 trillion quantum credits. I play for the deed to this station." A collective gasp echoed through the crowd. Casino owner Vextar, a blob-like gelation with considerable political connections, oozed forward with obvious distress. "Your Magnificence, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, our insurance policies simply cannot cover a wager of that magnitude. Perhaps we could arrange—" "You refuse me?" The temperature around Zarthek rose by several degrees. Several nearby patrons backed away as his scales began to glow. "No one refuses the Dragon King. It's not a refusal, Your Magnificence, it's simply—" The words died as Zarthek's roar shook the station's superstructure. Emergency barriers began activating as his rage threatened to breach the atmospheric shields. In the chaos, most beings fled toward the exits, but 2 figures remained seated at a corner table. Raffi Chen, a human freight hauler with calloused hands and worn clothing, looked up from his modest pile of credits with mild interest. Beside him sat Alvina Martinez, barely 18 standard years old, her dark eyes studying the scene with calculating intensity. Her clothes were patched and faded, marking her as one of the station's many refugees who worked the service tunnels. "For scraps. Everyone's losing their minds over a number," Raffi muttered, taking a sip of synthetic coffee. Alvina stood up, her small frame dwarfed by the towering alien beings around her. "Excuse me?" she called out, her voice clear despite its youth. The entire casino fell silent. Even Zarthek's flames dimmed as every eye turned to the human girl. "I'll take your bet," she continued, walking forward with steady steps. Zarthek's laugh was like grinding stone. "Child, do you even comprehend the sum we speak of? 1 trillion credits could buy entire star systems." "I understand perfectly," Alvina replied, reaching into her worn jacket. She pulled out what appeared to be a simple data pad, its surface cracked but functional. "I'll match your trillion credits." The crowd erupted in disbelief. Vextar oozed closer, his gelatinous form quivering. "Young human, perhaps you don't understand the conversion rates." "Oh, I understand," Alvina interrupted, her fingers dancing across the data pad's surface. "But see, everyone here is thinking in terms of quantum credits, galactic currencies, precious metals. You're all thinking too small." She held up the data pad, and suddenly holographic displays filled the air above the casino floor. Mathematical equations, star charts, and complex calculations scrolled past in dizzying arrays. 3 months ago, I was scrubbing plasma conduits in Sector 7 when I noticed something strange about the quantum resonance patterns. Took me weeks to figure out what I was seeing, but then it clicked. She smiled, and for the first time, there was something dangerous in that young face. "I wasn't just looking at energy readings, I was looking at a map." Raffi set down his coffee cup with renewed interest. He'd known Alvina for 2 years, ever since she'd arrived on the station as an orphaned refugee. The girl was brilliant, but this seemed beyond even her capabilities. "A map to what, human child?" Zarthek's voice carried a note of genuine curiosity now. "To something every species in this galaxy has been searching for since the first starship left its home system," Alvina said, her voice gaining strength. "The location of the origin cache. The silence that followed was absolute. The origin cache was legend, myth, the supposed repository of the progenitor's technology that had supposedly seeded the galaxy with faster-than-light travel and quantum physics understanding millions of years ago. Most scholars considered it fantasy. Impossible, breathed Vextar. The cache is a fairy tale. Is it? Alvina's fingers moved again, and the holographic display zoomed in on a specific sector of space. Because according to my calculations, it's located exactly 47 light-years from here, hidden in a quantum fold that can only be detected by someone who knows the precise resonance frequency to look for. She tapped the datapad once more, and a new image appeared. A ship, sleek and obviously of advanced construction, hung in the maintenance bay of a nearby asteroid mining station. 3 weeks ago, I used my findings to acquire this ship from some very unpleasant people who weren't using it for anything noble. It's equipped with a prototype quantum fold detector that I've modified using principles derived from the resonance patterns. One jump, and we're at the cache. Conservative estimates put the technology inside at being worth approximately 50 trillion credits. The Dragon King's eyes narrowed to slits. You would wager coordinates to a myth? I'm not wagering coordinates, Alvina said with a grin that would have made a pirate proud. I'm wagering 50% partnership in the most significant archaeological discovery in galactic history. Your trillion credits against half of everything we find there. Zarthek studied the small human for a long moment. Around them, the casino held its breath. Finally, his massive head nodded slowly. You have courage, little human. Very well. I accept your terms. Excellent, Alvina said, then turned to address the crowd. Oh, and just so everyone knows, the other 50% goes to establishing a fund for refugee aid and education throughout the galaxy. Because that's what humans do when we find treasure. We share it. Raffi couldn't help but smile. He'd taught Alvina to play cards, but apparently, she'd learned much more about gambling than he'd ever intended. As the greatest high-stakes game in galactic history began, one thing was certain. The universe would never underestimate humanity again.